So we're going to actually start our panel. And the exciting thing about this panel, first of all, is that this session is sponsored by Lumen, right behind you guys. And Lumen is actually powering the infrastructure right now behind all of today's content experiences as they leave the venue. And what we're actually going to attempt to do in this panel is take you through that pipeline. And you're going to be able to see this pipeline in the Create booth right in that corner there, the yellow sign over there. And you'll know Create because everyone has yellow pants, which are actually hard to find. So we appreciate that. But we're actually going to take you through each bit of this pipeline. And by the end of this panel, you're going to understand where that content is going and how this is going to work. So it's very exciting. So when AJ gets here, we will introduce him, but he's actually representing the consumer. He runs a very big virtual production studio in Los Angeles, and he's trying to figure out, how am I going to get my content out after a shot? Oh, here he is. He's going to run. He's going to run as he's waving. All right, why don't we do a speed round of introductions while we're waiting for AJ? So, Dane, let's start with you and just do a speed round of intros.
Hi, my name is Dane Brehm. I am a production technologist with Cintegral, and it's my job to help the creatives on the front end as the digital imaging technician on set and to help the creatives get what they need.
Excellent. Lisa?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Watts, founder and CEO of Create, a fully cloud-based studio with software, essentially. And we help creative teams put their entire workflow online and connect all of the various amazing technologies you're going to see on the floor into one single place. So come by and see us over at the Yellow Cube.
Great. Scott?
Yep. Hey, I'm Scott Henderson. I'm a solutions architect with Vcinity. And my job is to help organizations that need to get data from set to post and beyond do so as if it all exists within the same data center.
Rusty?
Hey, everybody. I'm Rusty Young. I'm Field CTO at NetApp. We make a data platform that exists both on-prem and in the cloud, and we help integrate into platforms like Create and others to help the workflows store those digital assets.
And the lovely Lisa.
Hey, everybody. Lisa Gerber, Senior Director of Media and Entertainment at Lumen. And I look across media and entertainment, live media, and also studio and creative infrastructure to sort of identify what products and solutions we can bring to bear for use cases in both of those areas.
And ladies and gentlemen, flying in from Central Hall just to be here with you tonight, AJ Wedding. Introduce yourself, AJ.
Sorry, guys. The Tesla loop was really slow. Yes, I'm AJ Wedding. I'm the founder and CEO of Orbital Studios.
Great. So I'm going to introduce these guys as each of the things that that they represent. And then if you have some questions, we're going to try and get to your questions. But if not, everyone here is in some booth here, and especially Create, you can see this whole thing play out. And Lumen, our sponsors, are right there too. So let's start with you, AJ. You are the customer in this pipeline situation. Tell us how this impacts you.
Well, in a lot of ways, actually. I think one of the biggest ones for us is security. A lot of our clients don't want drives out there with all of the stuff on them that is very proprietary. So being able to have kind of a direct connection to them is super helpful for us. And just, standard capabilities are rising pretty fast. And like some of the stuff Dane's working on, like we haven't even gotten there yet, but having those abilities as production start to spool up into this higher tech, shorter workflow kind of thing is pretty awesome.
And we're basically talking about going from camera to cloud, right? And so have you been doing that at Orbital?
So we've done a few tests with Red, but I wouldn't say that we've done it with a actual production. I wouldn't do that without Dane. As he well knows. I think there was one where we were going to do something like that, and I think the project fell through, but it is something that we're capable of, and we always want to have that capability.
And it's part of the challenge. I know we're all inundated, like we all are at this show, by lots of different solutions. Is that one of the things that's stopping you from moving forward?
No, honestly, I think it's really just customer education. If they know it's a possibility, that's what's important. Like a lot of the data infrastructure that we have, we do a pretty good job of pitching how that works. But I think with virtual production, it's already a lot of things being thrown at somebody, a lot of big words, Gaussian splats, and, all these new things that we're working on, that it's just another level of something that, I'm not ever going to understand, right? As the business owner, I need to understand it to a point where I can pitch it and then have these guys like actually run it, and getting it to that point where it just becomes ubiquitous. I think we're pretty close to that, and it's just really the customer needing to understand it.
Great. And just to ask the audience, how many of you have played at all with camera to cloud? Anyone here playing with it? Okay, curious about it? Yeah! All right, that's not sorry to work you up. All right, Dane, let's go over to you now. You are really representing the bridge from content up to the cloud. So tell us about how that works.
So traditionally, we would have started film when we were filming. If I'm coming in, for example, to Orbital Studios, we've had conversations with the director, the DP, visual effects supervisor, editorial, post-production. And my job as the digital imaging technician, especially on set, or a production technologist in the larger scope, is to kind of satisfy each one of the creatives' needs or wants for that given project, but really be also flexible enough to change when needed. So like when AJ and I might work on a project, he might say, "Hey, can you do this?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I can do that, but the director's leaning more towards this." So sometimes it's about helping, as you said, educate, but really they want some kind of validation. They also want to experiment a little bit, because sometimes people they're deciding 90% of the look or 90% of what they want to do. And they kind of are trying to figure out that last little 10% because they need to see it right in front of them as they're working. And so as a production technologist, my job really is to take that front end, and using new technologies like free space optics, light bridge. We're now, unless you have connectivity like AJ has at his facility, we have the ability to kind of work mobily. So if we're in a virtual production scenario, we're filming on set, and then they're going to say, "Okay, we're now in the desert." Or, "Hey, we're in downtown LA and we're just going to be on the other side of the 6th Street Bridge, but we want to use Orbital Studios as a home base." And so it's my job to make sure that we can get footage from that. And it could be either drives, it could be connectivity. I mean, with FSO as well as private 5G now, we're getting more and more into compressing and connecting to our cloud partners and integrating with lovely services like Create, who's really sitting there in remote production with the editorial. And so then Lumen and connecting in and uploading to executives or to decision makers, maybe on the business side. And then, of course, the underpinnings of Lumen and all that. So it's my job on the front end to explain that to everyone in a very simple and meaningful way.
Okay, so now we have AJ's made the content. Dane, you have helped push the content to its next journeys. So we're moving away from handing that hard drive to some poor kid who's got to get it to FedEx or DHL or wherever it has to go. And we're going straight to the cloud. And then we get into Create with Lisa. So Lisa, tell us what happens next.
Yeah, in this particular scenario, what we're doing here is that that content is going into drives. Wherever those drives are, we don't really care, right? So they could be, and in this case, they're in Lumen's Edge on a NetApp server. And then what we're doing is we're providing a single user interface for all of the studio technology that a company needs. So we have some of our own tech. We integrate with anybody and everyone out you might see on the floor, both software and hardware solutions. But the real thing for us is to provide that really simple user interface for the users, and then also for the studio itself. You can think of it somewhat as studio as software, for example, running entirely in the cloud. Whatever resources that you might need, whether you need virtual workstations, you need that storage, you need us to connect your storage, you need to connect us to your workstation. It gives you that single operating environment. And then I don't want to necessarily steal all of Scott's thunder, but the main thing is when you're working in a remote environment, speed is really important. Latency, zero latency, no latency, as fast as you can get it, is very important for the user's experience. You have to think of an editor as almost like a gamer, right? They have a lot of muscle memory related to the tasks that they do. They need those when they hit the key, the content needs to respond. So what we have to do under the hood is make sure that, we're optimizing for many different scenarios, to make sure that experience is what they need to be. So we can do full resolution workflows, proxy-based workflows, whatever might be necessary for the environment that they're connecting in and from, and where that content is going. Where that content is located is very much about that same experience, right? Because storage has weight. Right, physics is a thing. So what we think about is how do we accommodate for those things, and then the third thing that we always accommodate for is cost, because someone's like, oh, can you get me this to here in X amount of time? Yeah, I totally could do that. How much money do you have to do that? Right. So we have to try to balance the cost and performance. So we want to squeeze everything we possibly can around existing infrastructure, those predictable, manageable costs for those things. And still achieve the objective. So for us, it's really about that simplified user interface that we think of ourselves like an F1 pit stop team. You have a production that needs to be online, like right now. You come see us, we get you online right now, and we get your stuff connected up. Dane's going to be starting to help us get that content ingested, and then we take it down the lines to these fabulous people that help deliver a lot of that performance that we need for our users.
I love that. All right. So now we're going over to Scott. And Scott, you're going to talk to us about accelerated delivery. Okay.
Yep.
Make it sexy, Scott. Come on.
Oh, gosh. I love that setup. Thank you. So in a perfect world for AJ, everything that Dane talked about, everything that Lori talked about happens in the same place. But the reality is it doesn't. You have secondary venues. You have remote production studios. You have international locations. So just to get the data from set to post becomes very arduous. So what do? We either wait for copy forever, or more common, we sneaker net, we courier, we FedEx, we whatever to get the data from here to there as fast as possible. But that introduces a whole new set of risks. You've got governance issues. You've got potential loss during handling. It's very proprietary information, as you'd imagine. So Vcinity is set out to solve that issue on the front end. So what we do is we've partnered with a company that's not on stage with us, but is very important to this, called Degero. They have a booth just to my left. And what they bring to the table is a capability that bonds multiple network connectivity pieces, whether it's cellular or something like a Starlink, or even a traditional network connection that you may get from Lumen, into a single logical network connection. So that gives us the bandwidth that we need to then lay our tunnel on top of that to deliver an incredibly efficient experience for moving data from set to post, no matter the distance between set and post. So whether it's 20 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds, you have a deterministic, predictable delivery of that data, terabytes per day, even just using the bonded cellular services. So now you've got the data where you need it to be. Maybe it's in the cloud or in your data center or your favorite edge storage provider. But your workstations and your users are not in the same data center. So now what do? Now you make more copies. You copy that data out to the workstation. So now you have a new governance issue. You have fragmented copies. You have overtaxed infrastructure because you're paying for storage you don't need. So the second capability that Vcinity brings to the table is to enable all of those remote creatives to have real-time access to the data as soon as it's been created and landed in the target storage, no matter how far that creative team is from the data. So if you've got your coloring team way over there and you've got your VFX team way over there, they have, again, deterministic, predictable performance. Now you're leveraging more of a traditional backbone type of scenario, so you can get very high bandwidth access. And we address the issue inherent because of physics of latency between those two endpoints. But it's also important to think about what's tomorrow bring for my data. So now we've gone set to post to product, but product, now we're going to train LLMs on that data. We're going to inference that data. So Vcinity brings the opportunity to do that, again, without making even more copies of the finished product out to your favorite LLM.
You're really allowing all the things that need to happen, instantaneously and securely to that piece of content in all its different life forms.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when time matters and delay is not on the table, that's when
Okay.
Vcinity comes in.
I love that. Delay is not on the table. That is what I'm going to say to my 16-year-old. Delay is not on the table, damn it. All right, let's go over to Rusty now. And Rusty, you are providing storage on the edge. And also just define the edge a little bit because everyone's tossing around that word. So help us understand what that means.
Yeah, we'll do. Although, Scott, you said data more than I'm probably going to say data in my talk. So as I said, I work for NetApp, and what NetApp does is we're providing that edge-based storage. If you think about the Create platform and where it's storing things, it's all happening in the cloud. And so what does that look like, right? The cloud's kind of a nebulous thing. The data gets up there, and you're like, well, what data is it? And you'll hear NetApp, if you hear me talk, or if you hear anybody else from NetApp talk, you'll hear us talk about how we view data as the most important asset a company has. Now, all the creative people, easy. We need creatives out there making things. But the minute they digitize something, that becomes the most important piece. And this entire workflow and pipeline that we're talking about here, data is the piece that's being moved around. It's being moved from wherever they're being worked on, and it's got to be stored somewhere. Now, the processing that Create does is handled in Amazon on our platform that's called FSxN for NetApp ONTAP. That is a native AWS platform, but on the back end, it is data storage. But what's really unique is we're applying some really neat technologies to the data storage that we have there. And we kind of provide 4 things that really help creative build out that platform. So the storage isn't just generic storage. It's not a drive somebody's carrying around. It's an integrated platform with a lot of innovation happening. We heard security mentioned, and we can protect that data where it lives to make sure only the people that are supposed to use it can use it. But more importantly, what we can provide is a scalable solution in the cloud, something that can go to petabyte scale and continue to provide high performance as that scale expands. Maybe it's tens of petabytes today, hundreds of petabytes, and growing forever and ever, but the ability to continue to provide that performance. So that's the first thing we do. The second, Lisa talked about it, was reducing costs. If you think about who's put storage in the cloud, right? It can typically be very expensive, but we apply a handful of technologies, things like deduplication and compaction, to store that data as efficiently as possible. And what that does is that allows Create to reduce that storage cost and have things be more efficient. Typically, in their platform, we're reducing that project delivery time by about 20% because of those efficiencies that are happening on the back end. The other piece of it is going to be simplified operations. So you can imagine, you want to set up storage, you want to make it perform. How do you set it up? Who's going to do that? So NetApp has a technology called the Workload Factory that makes sure that their platform is configured the same each time. Every time they deploy storage, they expand storage, it automatically applies best practices so that they can trust that that storage is configured right. They don't have to go back in and redo it or verify it. And so it gives them a way to make sure that it's fully automated and ready to go. And so this allows them to do delivery in what used to take weeks to onboard artists, and they can now do it in minutes. It really helps their platform go fast. And then kind of the final thought on that is it gives them a way to go out and differentiate themselves, right? So they do something better, faster, and easier than the other platforms. So now they have the confidence of a storage platform that's resilient, that's high performant, it's multi-zone in the cloud. So if there's a cloud outage, they can have it running in multiple zones and keep things going. So this allows them to go out and have the confidence that the back-end storage, the pieces that are holding all this data that's being creative, they can go out and find the most demanding customers and meet their needs.
That is beautiful, Rusty.
Thank you.
All right. And we're going to end at least the pipeline piece with Lisa. So tell us the role Lumen plays.
Well, I just want to say this whole thing that you've seen today, this is really a tale of 2 use cases, right? I mean, we have, on one hand, we have camera to cloud, which is the connectivity piece, which Lumen can absolutely bring to bear with our, network as a service. If we were to say connect Orbital, and we are planning on doing that with our, on-demand high bandwidth connectivity. But for the purposes of anything on location, kind of like Dane addressed, and also, what we're showcasing here with this demo, this is really about bringing our edge to bear and about making it possible for visual effects artists and for editors to access their work and, collaborate with far lower latency and lower egress than traditional hyperscalers, but at the same time, making it possible to access those hyperscalers with ease through the Create platform, right? Which Create has put together. And then with Vcinity, making it even more powerful to access those files as if they're, from anywhere, as if it's happening locally. So I think for us, the exciting piece is that we're really enabling artists and helping to sort of empower this work that's taking place. And so for us, it's on one hand, camera to cloud, but then it's also the artist's edge, which is what we're calling it. You heard it here first.
The artist's edge. I like
artist's edge.
Well, okay. So if I'm AJ and I have a big production, am I calling all of you? Because that seems kind of overwhelming.
I'll Create.
You call Create. Okay. So how does that work? AJ calls you, Lisa, and what happens that you light this pipeline up?
The main thing for Create then is to really understand a little bit more about what AJ is trying to get done and what his environment is. Is he in a constrained environment, or does he have a big fat pipe at his studio, et cetera, or is he going out on location? So depending on what that scenario is, we work with all of these partners to say, okay, this is the best, this is our recommendation. So and then from there, it's, again, as Lisa was saying, there's a couple of different use cases here. So in the scenario where he's like, okay, I'm going to be filming on the stage, on the virtual production stage all day, and my editors are actually in Kansas, let's just say. The idea of being able to do one of two things. One is he can deliver that content to a NetApp storage in Lumen's Edge. And the reason, and one of the other things that Rusty didn't mention about why we go with NetApp is they have the largest installation of on-prem, edge, and cloud storage across, and also multi-cloud across all the hyperscalers. So from a Create perspective, this is a competitive advantage for us because we can standardize on NetApp storage in a lot of across all scenarios in which we work, and they are motivated, or they better be motivated, to scale into the cloud, because there's only so many places that their SANs can go, and that's why their partnership with Lumen, I think, is so interesting. So either he's either going to use Cintegral or some other method to get his content into storage, either directly into one of the hyperscalers or to Lumen's Edge. And then we're going to set up his studio in just a few minutes, right? So we kind of think of ourselves as the F1 pit stop team. He's got a project. He needs to get it online really quickly. He doesn't want to have to deal with all this IT stuff. And then, as that content starts coming in, if it does get delivered to the Lumen Edge, for example, I don't have to move it into AWS. Basically, we can use Vcinity in, let's say if we're in AWS or GCP or wherever we happen to be, that Kansas artist is going into that remote workstation. We've got the Vcinity appliance right next to that, and that Vcinity appliance is handling the high-speed access to that storage in the Lumen Edge. And the artist doesn't know the difference on
this
whether
is
it's
all under the hood. I mean,
you don't have to do. They don't have to worry about any of that.
Right.
So, that's just one scenario. On he doesn't have to worry about it. He calls me, and then
everybody else worries.
We're all in the garage.
Lisa, since you mentioned it, right? The fact that we can do it in all clouds is a critical piece. So if you guys decide to stand something up in Google or Microsoft or somewhere else, they can, because it's all NetApp, they get the exact same experience. The same automation piece is going to work, the same integrations into their platform. So it gives them that flexibility. And so that's the value of having a single integrated storage platform that lives in all of the hyperscalers. It's the exact same experience end to end. They know what to expect and they know how it can scale.
Lisa, did you want to add to that from before?
Well, I was just going to say, there's also a world where it's just network as a service, right? Where Dane says, okay, we have the Lumen NAS. We're going to spin up on AJ's stage. We have to be built in there, of course, but then we're off to the races there too. And then we could do the same thing with Create as well there. So there's different versions.
So depending on what the client needs are, you guys will sort of put together this puzzle. So that it works.
It would be our NAS with our edge.
And can you define NAS for folks that don't?
Sorry, network as a service, not to be confused with network attached storage.
Or little NAS, a big singer.
Little NAS.
What I understand.
NAS. Okay.
He's a singer of some sort.
There you go.
So, AJ, is your world also, because it seems to me every day we're hearing about new content modalities on stages. Now you can do mocap live in front of a virtual production stage, and actually the actors can see what they're doing. I mean, things are getting, crazy. So are your needs constantly changing? And then why now is this being lit up? Is that because of your needs constantly changing?
Well, 100% our needs are constantly changing. I mean,
Yeah, I tell that to my daughter as well, and I get nothing.
I mean, it's, you mentioned the live mocap, which has been a thing for us for a while, but also now with trying to get really high performance out of the stage. We're now trying to do live path tracing, or, take our, 3D project and make a Gaussian splat of it and then have that be what's projected on stage. So there's a lot of those kind of things that are popping up now as things for us. I think also, Orbital is also a mobile service. So we pop up our stages kind of anywhere. We have partners all over the world. And that is when all of a sudden we have this need for, okay, we don't have this pipe that Lisa provided into the studio. We do need this, like, hey, it's basically on location. This studio's internet's crap. So how am I going to get something to the people I need to get it to? So that's, why the super friends show up when you need them.
I was just going to say, also live, right? I'm just going to say that and turn it over to Lisa and Dane to say a little bit about.
I'll talk a little bit about our
side. This is the
side.
sports theater, right?
It's hand in hand. It's my hand and then there's Create's hand. But we are in the sports theater, right? So how many here are in sports? I just want to ask in this audience. Okay, there's a good chunk of you. All right, how many want to be in sports? Okay, AJ. Yeah.
How many just watch a lot of sports?
I
mean, okay, you have a lot of sports watchers.
So, sports is so much about experience, right? It's so much about the end user, so much about adding value. You have not only just the video, the audio, the experience, you have statistics, you have sensors, you have all of the data that needs to be collected at one time to enhance the experience, no matter what. And so, if this is more on the narrative side, it'd be story, right? But sports is story, does create a story out of that. And so there's so much that's in demand. There's so much expectations that are there for sports. And it's such a critical time when we're broadcasting or filming or VOD or whatever it may be. And so having that speed in sports to not only to start cutting, but really just communicate. When you're communicating to editorial, it's about keeping that pipeline intact so that the people on the front end are able to talk to the people in the middle or in the end, and then backwards, right? So that content is put out, whether it's social media, digital marketing, any of those, enhanced experience. Replay, that's all part of all of this, right? And making sure that experience is optimized. So if you're watching an event that's taking place in England or in Japan or in the US, that every single one of those, now with immersive, you have COSM and all that other fun stuff too. So we have all of these different types of sports experiences now that we can leverage. And so being able to work with, Create and have, NetApp and have Lumen and all of these just really enhances the experience, but it really just takes the load off, especially on the front end. So, I couldn't do it without him.
Does anyone want to take us home? Lisa, you want to take us home?
Yeah, I think Lisa wanted me to kind of talk about our unsegmented growing file technology, which is a lot of people know about growing files or proxy based workflows for live near real time post production. So we were actually challenged last year by a gentleman who actually is at the show, who lives in the truck, and he's like, "Why can't I just get an unstitched growing file? I'm just getting all these little MP4s or whatever, or proxy based." And so we said, "Well, I don't know why not." He's like, "Well, nobody's been able to do it in like 6 years." So I'm like, I don't know why we can't do it. So we did. We invented it. We invented a specialized transcoder that really has to operate in the cloud because of how long it is. And we were, we won't say who, but there was a interesting boxing match that happened just recently, and we did that tested that workflow. You have a 7 hour full resolution file that is on an editor's timeline in this case, Adobe Premiere, that's only, 30 to 45 seconds behind live. So if you think about the post-production process, not having to wait for the truck to finish broadcasting, to get the files uploaded, et cetera, they're already off and running. And so many different workflows can kick off from that, both, AI workflows, social media workflows. They're delivering highlights back to the truck on Create that's sitting on the EBS, et cetera. So this is why we're talking about reducing friction in the entire process, both from transport to storage to access and back again. We are demonstrating this again at our booth, where you can really see we have a small stage where we're showing, coming from a red camera through, in this case, Dane's infrastructure with SRT, also side by side with an Amazon SRT encoder. So all of these we integrate with whatever is available on the ground, and then right back out to those editors and right back out to the viewers. So kind of the full loop.
And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say we're talking about sports and live media, and Vivix is the heart of the Lumen portfolio for live media. And there we have it.
And we're going to actually be learning more about that over the next couple of days with a variety of other sessions. So please keep coming back. Let's have a big hand for this panel, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Go to Create to actually see what they just talked about. Check out Lumen, and all these guys are going to stick around a little bit so you can go and talk to them. And also look them up. They're all over at different booths here. So you can actually go home with real insights about how you're going to move your lives forward. I know I really want to move my life forward. Don't you? You seem to understand. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big hand, and we'll see you all more back at the Sports Summit here at the theater.